Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share about promises with you all. Raise your hand if you've used a promise before in JavaScript. Well, then why are you all here for this part? If you all know so much about it.
You came for me and then stuck around.
That's true.
I came to see you, Mark.
She says walking out.
I'm going to open up my heart a little bit. She's like, oh, can I see you cry? Well, for those of us who do not know about promises, or maybe who haven't had a ton of experiences with promises, we'll still talk about it, and I think we'll have a good time while we do it. A little bit about myself. My name is Mark Thompson. You can find me on Twitter at MarkTexan. You can also find me at marktexan.com. I work as a developer at American Express. I teach at Northwestern part-time. One of my students is here, so give him a round of applause for showing up. Just be like supportive. Like, that's pretty amazing. So that's pretty phenomenal. And then I'm also an aspiring author. I'm working on an engineering book, actually, but it's not a technical book on how to write code specifically. It's really about how to be an effective engineer, considering that the paths to becoming an engineer are so different now. You can go through coding boot camps, you can do a lot of self-taught stuff. So a lot of those lessons that I wish I had have learned in the beginning, I'm sharing those lessons through this book. So if I finish it, that will be the ultimate prize, right? Just finishing the book. I don't care if it's good or not. I just want it done. That's what I really care about. You know, exactly. All right, so what's the problem that we face that promises even become an issue? What are we even thinking about? Who here has had to request data from multiple data sources? Meaning you have to do multiple AJAX calls, and they might have been related, maybe not, but what you found is this. One that comes back at some time, then you have another that comes back at a different time completely. And while you're waiting, you're probably doing one of two things. If you're not using promises, you're probably setting some flag in your code to say, well, promise A returned, and then you set another flag with promise B, and you have an interval that you set up that's checking for A and B, then you cancel the interval, and then you go on with your life. Now, that may seem palatable for two data requests. What if you have the case when you have multiple? What if you're requesting a ton of data? Think about a site that does a dashboard for its users, where maybe you want to get the time, you want to get the weather, right? And you want to get the latest news headlines, you might want to get traffic, you might want to get their Twitter feed, you got a bunch of stuff, but maybe, just maybe, you're not okay with showing each one of those things one at a time. Maybe you want to wait until all of that data comes back so that you can respond accordingly. Here's another scenario that we may have worked with as well. Let's think about trying to load an image via JavaScript. The time for that image to load is not instantaneous, actually. There's still some input time that it can take. Now, you may say, well, Mark, we have events. The event will tell me when the loading has happened. And the event will fire. And I'll know, but that's not actually correct. The firing of those events could have happened even before you've attached them. Because if it's a failure, as soon as you run that code, before your code gets to the attachment of the events, those events could have already happened. And events are unlike promises in the fact that once an event fires, it is fired. You don't really get that access to go backwards and figure out if it happened already. Promises are a better way. So here are the three ways that I think about promises. I'm sure there are other ways to think about it, but I think about the fact that async programming, asynchronous, meaning you're doing things that are kind of, I won't say running in the background, but something's happening and you're waiting, and the main thread isn't blocking on it, all right? That's really common in today's day and age. You want to get so many different AJAX calls, so many different API calls, but it's really hard to get this right unless you have some sophisticated tooling around doing that part. JavaScript is single-threaded. Now, I'll put the double asterisk there because some people are already turning up your noses. I can see you, Mike. Well, what about web workers? Web workers are single-threaded. We're talking about the JavaScript main thread. And when we talk about the fact that it's single-threaded, think about the fact that when you do something in JavaScript, it's blocking until that thing is done. And if you want to think about what blocking looks like on a single thread, think about yourself right now. As I'm talking, I'm moving my hands and I'm moving my feet. But if I were to sneeze right now, everything stops until the sneeze is done. That's the way I want you to think about blocking on the main thread of JavaScript. It's kind of like a sneeze. So I don't know if you've ever been so bold as to try to like fight through a sneeze and you can say, well, I'm not going to move. I'm just going to let it happen. No, your whole body just seizes up. You just and then it's blocked, right? So that's the same type of idea that we have when it comes to JavaScript being single-threaded, blocking on that main thread. The other thing that I've noticed is how do I write code to handle the unpredictability of when things return? I've this year probably dealt with about 4 or 5 race conditions in my code. And race conditions where you're expecting things to happen in a certain way, but they happen out of order, and you don't, and the outcome is unexpected. That's really easy to get when you're doing async programming. And all these problems I face, I'm pretty sure a lot of us face as we're writing code. So, like everything, there has to be a better way. There has to be. This is archaic, the fact that I'm making up my own data structures to determine if something has loaded or not. That seems archaic to me. But I think there is a better way. And the better way really is promises. Now, again, I can already tell people saying, well, Mark, promises have been around for so long. Well, the big change is this. Promises are now native in JavaScript. That's the big change. Yes, they've been around for a while. If you've written code in React, or especially code in Angular, you had access to something, the $Q service. With that service, that was an implementation that Google applied from Chris Kowal's Q service. So they saw Chris Kowal, who came out, made a promises library. Google's like, that's really cool. We're going to adapt it to do what we want it to do, and we shoved it in Angular. So that's where I got my first experience, where many people got their first experience with promises. But now with ES6, now we have promises built in to the browser. You can use this stuff right now. If you have to support IE, even 10 or 11, you're still going to have to use a polyfill, right? And a polyfill simply means that you find something to, some extra code that accomplishes that same thing for you. All right, so IE 10 and 11 don't support promises, but Edge does. And remember, Edge and IE are not the same thing. They're 2 different products, even though people like to say, well, it's IE 12. No, it's not. Nope, it's 2 different products. Now, as I jump into more of this, if you have questions, please feel free to just, if you want to raise your hand, you want to jump in and ask me any questions, you can do that at any time. You don't have to wait till the end.
Do you really think Edge is not IE, even though they have kind of the same logo?
They are the same. Yeah, Microsoft, you're doing a lot of good stuff, but you just kind of messing up.
calls it Edge instead of IE.
You say what?
So it's different.
Yeah,
different.
that's it, exactly. So that way you feel like, I know you, Edge. I know you so well, and you kind of don't. It's not the same. Not the same. Let's talk about some language in terms of promises. Here are the 4 terms that we'll talk about today. And if you want to sound like a hotshot to your friends and be the rock star that you really are, you want to use language like this. You want to say that promises are fulfilled. Fulfilled simply means that the promise succeeded. Whatever task you were waiting for it to happen, it actually worked. Or you could say the promise was rejected. Meaning, like it sounds like, I tried to do something, definitely did not work, the promise itself was rejected. Pending, you don't have success or rejection state, it's really still happening. Whatever you have working is still going on. And then settled means that promise has actually succeeded. Or it has rejected. Something happened, it's done, it's no longer waiting. Before I jump into my next part of this, I'd love to take a step back and clarify something that I mentioned earlier. One of the most wonderful things about promises that I've noticed, at least in my experience, when we talked about events, we said that an event fired. And if you didn't have a handler listening for that event, then you just missed the train. If you were not on the platform, you missed the train, period. Well, once a promise has been resolved or rejected, it has always been resolved or always been rejected. Which means that if you were not listening to the resolution or the fulfillment or the rejection of that promise, you can go back and still get that result. That's so powerful because if you think about the programming case where maybe you start off with a bunch of data you're requesting and you do a bunch of stuff, you go to other functions, you come back, if it's still in scope and you look at that promise, it could be 10 minutes from now. It'll still be either fulfilled or rejected, even when you come back to it. That gives you a lot of power to not be bound by the speed of which the event happens. Meaning, if you're just not listening, that's okay. When you're ready for the promise to respond to the promise's resolution or rejection, fulfillment or rejection, let me be a hotshot, let me be fancy, the fulfillment or the rejection. When we're ready to find out about those things, we can go back. Any questions so far?
I'm confused between affiliate and reject. Go ahead.
I just couldn't
I'm
hear you.
confused between your verbiage there.
Okay, sure. As we'll see in a minute, with promises, you usually want to do some work, whatever that work is. It could be have a computation that's long lasting, right? You could be requesting asynchronous data. If what you're doing is successful, your promise has been fulfilled. If what you tried to do failed, the promise is then rejected. And that failure could be a couple of things. It could be a manual failure, meaning that you were inside of your promise code, you decided that the result that you got results in a failure. Right? So that's kind of your decision. But what if there's an error that happens? A parsing error or a reference error, type error, that also will result in a rejection of your promise. We're talking a lot in the air right now, right? It's just a whole lot. So let's actually dig deep, like really dig deep, and let's get some promises on the screen. This is. I spent 3 hours on this slide trying to get the right font, make sure it's accessible and readable for everybody. All right, and if I zoom in here, it doesn't even zoom. You see that? Because it's perfect. All right, let's have some fun. Let's write some code. All right. I almost feel like we need to.
Yeah.
Okay, I can still work with this. I'm cool with that. When I teach, this is about as big as my editor is, and I've gotten so used to using such a big editor that I don't know how to use it like in a small size anymore. I feel like my glasses don't work just because of that, but they still kind of work. All right. And speaking of glasses, I had a heartbreaking experience today. I went to get an eye exam, and then when the optometrist was like, all right, let's go show you your frames, I was like, no, if you just give me my prescription, that'd be good, because I wanted to order online because it's so much cheaper, and just the look on her face was just like so heartbreaking. I felt really bad. But glasses should not cost $400. And then,
Do not feel bad.
exactly, so when I remembered how much these cost me, so yeah, that's why I want my prescription. I'm gonna order these online. All right, so let's make some promises. I'm gonna do a terrible thing. I'm gonna use a one-letter variable name. Don't do this, but I wanna do it because I wanna break the rules right now.
Oh, you're like a functional programmer guy.
Functional guy.
Or a virus writer.
I like that. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
He's pre-minifying his code.
That's true. Wait, don't you optimize before it's written, right?
Yeah, that's how you always optimize.
That's how you
Long
do it.
before you know if it's any good.
All right, so if we're just looking at this line, I've actually created a promise here. The promise. Oh, okay. Whenever you're ready, Mark. All right, thank you so much. All right, bar P, right? So we got this promise here. You all whisper like a herd of school children, like I can hear everything you're saying. It's all good. So this promise, this is just our constructor function for the promise, right? So let's jump in. Here's what a promise takes. This is one of the forms of the constructor. It takes a function that has two parameters. Those two parameters are resolve and reject. Resolve and reject. And these, now we're gonna get into a little bit of brain surgery here, so strap in tight, all right? I need everybody to lock in right now because the next part of the code is gonna be a little tough to digest. But we're gonna try it together, and I believe in your magic. You can do this. All right, ooh, this is stressing me out a little bit. All right, get my shoulders moving.
Take your time.
All right. All right, so I know this is a little tough, but we're gonna create a Boolean called flag, and we'll set the true. Like, stick with me though. If flag, all right, if flag is true, we're gonna say resolve. We're gonna have a fun message. Yes. All right. All right, I know that was tough, but let's just break it down just a little bit. Inside of my promise function here, so inside of this block of code, I get to decide how and what the terms are if my promise resolves or not. I get to decide that. So I'm saying that if the value of the flag is true, then my promise will resolve and it'll send out the message, yes, we did it. I know. Else, as flag is false, we'll say, what would we type here, actually?
Reject.
Reject. What would we type?
Do it. Boo. No.
Reject,
You
right?
got screwed.
Okay. Is that accessible language? I'm not sure. You got screwed. That's just mean. That's just mean. All right, here's your first promise. And that's pretty magical. I almost thought you all would erupt in applause because it's so amazing. But yeah, I thank you. Somebody knew what to do. All right, cool. All right, so really what I'm saying is based on my internal logic, I've just simplified it for the sake of the presentation, but this can be as complex or as simple as you want it to be. Right now, we have an actual promise that will resolve. This is not toy code that doesn't work. This is a pseudocode. This promise will resolve. What will be the value when it resolves, though?
Yes, we did it.
Yes, we did it. Why is that the value? Because it's what I said it would be. And that's just the way that it works. Now, how would I actually do something with it? So now that I've created this promise, what can I do with it? How can I access it? I love the language that promises create for us, because we get to describe things in a way that sounds human comprehensible, and it doesn't sound like you're talking to a robot. I'm going to say p.then, going to have a function as a result. And let's say something goes bad. Let's say my promise gets rejected. I should do a dot catch. Now this dot catch, there are a couple of ways to do this function actually. And the difference is very subtle yet important. And I'll talk about the difference between passing in. So here's your options. A dot then means whenever what you're doing is done, then do the following. So when my data finally comes back, then take away the spinner on the screen. Once I'm done with this long calculation or whatever it is that I'm doing, then do something else. I love that language because I can explain it to you, and I can explain to you pretty complex processes. I can say literally, well, I'm waiting for this data from this API, and then I'm also going to do this parsing. Then once that's done, I'll do this. And because I use the word then, you can start to key in and say, well, are you using a promise there? Because it sounds like you want to wait until an asynchronous task is done. But if you look at this code, this is technically not even asynchronous. This is actually synchronous code. So promises are really versatile, and the fact that it doesn't even have to be an API call, it doesn't have to be something asynchronous, it can be synchronous code as well. We're going to do a console.log of the actual result. Otherwise, let's say we had an error. Oh, I need to change this a bit. I need to change this. Here's a good way to do this. When you reject and you want to send a message or some data back, use an error object. That's just kind of a best practice when you're working with promises. Just use an error object to send it back. Because then here's something else you can do. If you actually use an error object, then you can throw that error again. If you don't want to swallow it and keep it to yourself, you can share it with other people, because that's what friends do. We share errors. All right, so console.
Dad joke in there about sharers.
I'm really trying to go soft on the dad jokes because I'm like loading them up.
I understand.
Because as soon as this kid is born, in 6 weeks, I am gonna just go straight up daditude, like you've never seen before. All right, you just wait. Ooh, I can't wait. I'm already practicing the things I'm gonna say to my son, like when he does something wrong. Like, Dad, can I please have this? Everybody else has it. I want it to say, look at my face. Does it look like I care? See, but it's hard to keep a straight face with that, so I'm really trying. All right, so let's actually run this code, because you didn't come here for dad jokes, you came here for code. So let's do that. So I'm in that directory so we can look. We're going to run this one basic promises. And here's a really cool thing about promises. This code runs in the browser and it runs in Node. So it runs across the stack, wherever you want. Promises are everywhere. Yes, we did it. I'm so happy for you all because you just made your first promise. You all are so fantastic. I love your coding skills. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got to get with the program. All right.
Question to your right.
Who has a question?
No questions
Is it
anymore.
actually synchronous? As if you have, let's say you have a console after your then, like when you have your p.then, if you had a console log afterward, would it execute that console log before it executes what's inside your then?
Where do you want to put the console
Like
log?
just that.
Outside.
Outside, yeah, just right there.
It's
You did
an after,
console.log.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good point. I understand your question now. So the question is this asynchronous even with the p.then, right? Like, is that part asynchronous, or was this going to block? Well, let's find out together, because I'm not even sure.
That's where you get in that weird area where they say promises immediately return.
Right. Right. But then is the waiting blocking for your promise? Oh, I don't think so, though. I don't think the wait for the .then blocking.
No, I
Well,
don't
I
know
think
what they're going to get here, to be honest, but
See, I
So-
think it'll execute everything and then
Yeah.
execute what's in the then after.
Just like an event handler would. So that's a really great distinction. Thank you for that distinction, because let's point that out. What's happened? So the question was, is this section right here going to block and wait for the promise to resolve before it moves on? And as we just saw, no, it doesn't. This is really similar to an event handler, where your event handler gets registered and your code moves on. Life goes on right after that. All right, the same thing's happening here. These .thens are behaving the same way, where I'm setting up what happens when the promise actually resolves or rejects. Resolves or rejects.
It looks like multiple thread is working. Even though you said
Yeah.
single thread.
Oh, it is.
Oh,
It's a good thing
you
for
can't get that
Hold this and
staff
point it at
anymore.
Mark.
Remember I told you that I need to go live?
All right.
This is why I
There you go. Somebody's serious.
Because
Okay.
we can interrupt him and he can't give a shit about it.
I can. Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do async promises right now. We'll finish up with chaining promises, and then what happens when you get a rejection. Let's knock this out. I'm going to do this in literally 8 minutes or less, because I don't want her arm to get too tired. So I'm going to do this. Well, not this, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to do a set timeout function, and I got to write everything in ES6. Please hold. Then I'll resolve times up. So when I use these backticks, that allows you to do string interpolation in JavaScript. So I can put quotes, single quotes, double quotes, all kinds of stuff in there, and it doesn't mess it up. This is really helpful. So that's what that syntax means. All right, I'm going to say in 5 seconds, we're going to call times up. I'm not going to reject this promise. I don't have a rejection case in this situation, so that's okay. I think we'll all live. So we'll take our promise, do our .then. Actually, I don't even need that right there, right? I think I can just do results, fat arrow, and console.log results. All right, very unreadable code. I love it like this. Thank you, Joe.
It's beautiful. It hurts.
Well, you're the one who brought in the string literal stuff, man. I mean,
Let's break this down just a little bit so we all know where we're going here. The result is still my parameter. All right, the result is still my parameter, just if I had a regular function. I'm sorry, I know, blocking you folks. All right, and then the fat arrow represents where I want to start my body of the code. Because it's a one-liner, I don't need any curly braces. And if I were going to return something, I actually don't need the return statement either there. It'll return the last thing evaluated. All right, so let's run this code in the browser. We could, but let's run it here. Let's do 2, which is async. All right. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000. Okay. Times. Well, I didn't type up and nobody told me, but times up. But we saw what happened. After 5 seconds, my promise resolved, but you may not think that my code was still processing. You may think that it stopped, but it didn't. So console.log, thank you for waiting. So we do this. Let's run it again. So the code still went on with its life. And eventually, I got my times up. So that's an asynchronous promise that we crafted by hand here. Now you can take that asynchronous code and you can literally replace it with, like I said, an XHR request if you want, or you can use jQuery. Now, just a quick note about jQuery. jQuery has something that resembles a promise in the library. It is not the same. They do not, oh great, it's not the same. And when I say it's not the same, that means you can't use a jQuery promise as is, meaning just plug it into your promise chain. It does not work the same way. You can use native promises to actually convert it into a promise because jQuery implements something that's called thenable, meaning that you can add the then to it. So if you do the .then, if it's a thenable thing, you can probably convert it into a promise, and then you can use it. I keep saying then. That's why it lends itself to this language. And after you've done the conversion, you can use it in your promise chain. I feel like you had your hand up.
So your question is,
Yeah.
in Dojo's promise, that's similar to BigQuery promise?
I would guess that it was closer to jQuery promise than to the JavaScript promise, because it probably came before and it's whatever things that they decided to add in to make it work. If that makes sense. But I would find out. I mean, you can find out pretty easily, actually. You find it pretty easily. And the way you find out, create your own promise, do a .then, and I'll show you how you would link it in. That's a good segue. Look at that. Look at that teamwork. All right. Teamwork makes the dream work. So let's talk about chaining of these promises together. So I'm going to make a bunch of promises right now with lightning speed and with great names and everything. Just know. Do I need parentheses if I have more than one parameter?
Yes.
See, this is why I just rather the regular function, because this is, you know what?
Still better.
Okay.
What you should do is hire digital primates.
We've been in documented for ES6
I see that. All right, so I'm going to make some more promises. We're going to make 3 promises. Okay, that's not a promise. This is. Cool. Now let's just fill these in. We'll do one promise that doesn't contain any asynchronous code. It'll contain regular code. So we'll say, out of the gate, because I believe in you. I believe. Did I still believe? Or is it the other way? No, that was right. There you go, except after C.
Or an Einstein.
That's wrong. I believe in you. Okay, so we got that one. Then we're going to do another one, which is going to be in a set timeout, so we can do something asynchronous. Okay, I don't need anything. I guess I just need that, right? Okay, and then I'll say resolve. I've been waiting for you.
All my life.
I'm waiting all my life. Okay, I can believe that. That's cool. I'm with that. And for this one, we'll do one more, just regular promise. And we're going to change P3 to something else in a minute, but let's do it just like this for now. All right. So what I want to do is say, oh yeah, I'm here too. So first I do P1, so when that resolves, then, now it tells you what I can do. I can do something with promise, like, so I think I can put P2 in here. So let's start with that, because I want to see if I'm doing this right, because my brain is a little foggy right now, because I'm so excited about this, it makes me, all right, if we chain it, we ain't chaining. So let's do this. Let's start this one. All right. Because I didn't do a .then, is that why? Oh yeah, duh. There is no output anywhere.
No.
Yeah, so what I should do is this instead. I should do this. Do a result. Okay, yes. Console.log our result. And here's what we're going to return. Return P2. Okay, so once P1 is done, I'm going to chain it to P2. I see a lot of furrowed eyebrows. Ask me a question. How can I help make it more clear? Just want to see it run probably. I think that'll help.
Yeah.
Okay, because the skepticism, I just see it in everybody's faces right now.
Why won't P2 run before it gets to that point?
Even if it does, it doesn't matter.
Oh,
But it won't run before this. Okay, wait, let me say it a different way.
You don't set a timeout either.
Even if it does run, it won't matter because promises are not like events. Whenever I'm ready to talk about the result of the promise, then I can attach to it. So if it resolves and everything like that, right? Even if it did run, it wouldn't matter.
but it won't actually apply.
You're saying if it resolves and you don't do anything with the result, you won't see it.
Well, the promise creates like a special promise object
Yeah.
that if you look at it before you run it, like, or if you just like, let's say you just return P2 and then try to do something with it, it would be a promise object, and regardless of its result, it would be just an object you can't really interact with.
Yeah, it's like a container for your result. So if you look at the result before it resolves, then it has like a IOU, and then if it does resolve, then it has what you want.
Like it creates a new object, so it go back straight into the P2.
Let's see it. Let's see it's working. Okay. Let's see it working. Okay. So let's see this. If we, all right. I lost my train of thought. What was it? Oh yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm back. Back and better than ever. All right. I want to do the result again. All right. So let's just look at what we have. We have P1. Where the P1 resolves, when it resolves, we got a then. The then is going to do what's going to tell whatever the result of the promise resolving. Then we're going to return P2, so that way it is the next thing in the chain that we're linking to. Because now I want to say, well, now that I have P2 in order, again, I don't really care about whether or not it resolved yet, because it's going to be available to me to add the then to. So that's what most matters. Now, if I want to control the order, I can do that as well, right? I can create the promise later if I want to control the order in which it executes. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Yeah. But if I have them all executing at first, doing their work at first, whatever they resolve, that's fine, because whenever I'm ready to ask questions about it, think about it like this, if you're trying to figure out how this works, okay? Think about the fact that if you're cooking food on the stove and it has a lid on the food, when it's done, you turn the stove off. Do you have to eat it right then and there?
Yes.
Oh, no.
What?
Why wouldn't you?
It's too hot.
It might be piping hot for one, but the point is, does the food disappear if you don't eat it right then?
Yeah, in my house, yes.
Nobody's talking about your hungry kids.
Get used to that.
You leave it there.
Stop messing up my example, Marcus.
It's there when you're ready.
It's there when you're ready to eat it.
Yeah, it's running.
Right.
Right. It doesn't mean, and fine, if you don't want it to be cold, if your stove has a warming function, you can turn on the warming function. That makes you feel better. But either way, whatever you turn on, whatever else you do, you can go vacuum the house, you can go cut the grass, do whatever you want. When you're ready to work with the food, it'll still be there. Now, at Marky's house, the food acts like an event. If you're not there when it's done, too bad, right? That's the way it works. It's probably gonna work like that when my kid turns a teenager and is gonna eat me out of house and home. I'm prepared for that. So let's run this, because I think I'm almost out of time here, and I want to.
You got 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's cool, because I'm almost done anyway.
Okay, cool.
You'll stop interrupting me. I mean, I've
Yeah.
been done.
You asked for questions and I asked one.
I'm gonna.
You're
I'm
fine,
gonna,
Mark. I got like 30 gigabytes left for you, bro.
okay, cool. All right. The promises worked in the order, but it was really anticlimactic because my timeout ran immediately.
Right.
So let's make this a little bit more exciting. Let's make it take not 2 milliseconds. Yeah, let's make it take milliseconds. We're fast. All right, let's do it again.
Wow.
Yeah, this is pretty magical.
Cool.
Okay, but what? Okay, yeah. No, don't clap for that.
It's too late.
So I have
Don't
I have a
clap.
legit question.
Yeah, what's going
So
on?
is the promise like subscriptions that are like hot and cold? Is it running as soon as I knew it, or does it only run when I call then on it?
No, I think it runs as soon as you knew it because, yes, when you create it, you're gonna say, I think you raised your hand first.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Jump in. If you want to answer this question.
I think
As soon as you know.
technically it runs after the current thread of that file
Oh,
runs,
right.
and then it would run, and it runs whatever it does, and then whenever it finishes, then whatever's in the then.
We can answer that right now,
No,
actually.
I got you.
No. Check this out. We can
Right,
answer
because
this.
it's not going to run right away. 'cause
Right
it doesn't
now.
have the thread to run.
Check this out. In my set timeout one takes 2 seconds, right? So let's find out what happens. Console.log inside P2. So just to make it even more dramatic, we'll make this 5 seconds so we can really make this example have some fun. Well, I mean, I'm done, so just relax. Just relax, I'm done anyway.
There's a whole new mark I haven't seen before.
Try teaching. You get strong. You get really strong really quick. Okay, now, sorry. Hello, how you doing? No, I'm just doing a talk right now. Oh, no, you can call me back, it's all good. I'm just teasing. All right, so my timeout is 5 seconds, but this console.log should happen immediately. Whenever this content, this promise runs, that should happen. I got my p dot then down here. All right, so I'm just gonna do one more just for posterity.
So we should see that, and then the P2, and then the result. We've lost interest in P3.
I mean, it will run.
P3.
Maybe could you combine like this one and like previous one?
I will.
Yeah.
I can. No, I will. I'll combine them both. All right. So let's do this one. Ready? Okay. Inside P2 ran before the then. So as soon as you create that promise, so we proved to ourselves. Look, let me tell you something. I wasn't even sure about that one. That was a really good question. So we just did the investigation together, right? So
what I expected
returns immediately.
it returns immediately.
Model better.
As soon as you do the new and create that promise, it's working. It's starting us off to the races, right? And even before I do the then, so that's what I told you, Marky, that it didn't matter if it resolved or not, because when I was ready to deal with it.
So it basically sits around in memory until you want to use it.
And so I'm ready to use it, yep.
So how's that any different from an Ajax call that I assign to an object?
How's it different than Ajax calling it down to an object?
If I assign an Ajax
Yeah.
call to an object, it's there when it's done and when I'm ready to use it.
But you don't have, it's unpredictable, you don't have any influence over, so with one you can do that. With one Ajax call, that totally works. What do you have two? And they rely on each other.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So this helps you to control the
You should architect
unpredictability.
your application better.
In that
All right.
file, then you use the promise works out better because you can actually use the result as you expect it without having a failure, because it's going to have that object regardless.
Yes.
Be
Yes.
ready for it.
Yeah. So I think we can stop here and I can take more questions about the promise stuff. But let me just say one more thing about the failures in promises. So if you get a rejection, the way the rejection works is it goes to the first in your then stack, the first place where there's an error handler or a catch. That's where it goes. Actually, let me take that back. It goes to the first catch if it comes from in the stack. Because when you do it then, you actually have two parameters here. You have your success and you have your fail function, whatever that is. Now, if you look at the code behind promises, that failure, so this code is actually the same as, let's say, p2.then undefined. Wait, I'm sorry, I'm saying that backwards. Oh, wait, let me say it this way. No, I'm saying it backwards because I want to say that's one way to do it, but if I took the failure function out of here and did .catch, okay, that is the same as saying, this is the same as saying undefined here, and then your fail function, right? So like, one is undefined, meaning that there is no success function. That's what the catch is. The catch is kind of like an extra then without a success function. That's what the catch is. But they don't work the same way though. That's the difference you got to be aware of. So if you wanted to do a failure function, if this promise fails right here, it's going to go to this catch. If I had a failure function here, that would catch the failure and not the catch. It will take the precedence there. Now, when would you use a catch versus just specifying a failure function for each case? When would you just do an overall catch? Well, it's if you have a bunch of things that are going to happen and you want to be able to say at any point in your failure stack, hey, do something in response to these 3 steps that I'm controlling, my processing of the output. I'm not controlling the flow or the execution, I'm controlling the processing of the results. That's kind of what the promises do for you. They let you control how you process or respond to the result of your asynchronous or whatever type of code you put in your promise. It allows you to respond to it. You're not controlling the processing though. Meaning, as we saw, as soon as I created that promise, it started its work. I couldn't tell it to wait. It just started processing. Yes, that's how that works. You just have to believe me. If you don't believe me, you just have to believe me. Okay. I think I'll go ahead.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
So I've been using native promises for a while now, but I just never really looked into it. Do we natively have like a promise.all?
I was just about to show that. Look at you being all pretty proactive. I like that. That was clean. Okay, so we have promise.all method. So here's the way that I use promises every day. Maybe, just maybe, I have a bunch of calls that are not related to one another directly, but I want to have them all kick off, request whatever data that they're going to bring back, and when all of the data is back, I want to show everything. That's really hard to do when you're using regular AJAX calls, for instance, and you get regular callbacks, right? This allows me to say, really, I'm able to say, okay, look, when all of you are done, then do something else. So if we just added then here, all right, and then we will do console.log of results. So remember we forgot about our other promise? Well, we're gonna come back, it's gonna come back to life. P3, you're back in the building, you're back in the game, P3, get ready, put your uniform on. All right, we'll get rid of all of this, make it super clear. So I got 3 promises. Then I have my .all, meaning when all of these have resolved. When they all have resolved, do something. So let's look at what the output is. Who rejected?
Rejected.
It's not a function.
How does the result come out? Because you have three console logs with text and then.
Well, it's just saying unhandled promise rejection. So
Right.
I
So
don't think I mean,
You have your
the result's going to be
still
something.
Yeah, it's like, is it an array of
Right.
results or?
wait, so I wonder. So you know what? What it's complaining about is that I haven't done anything to catch the rejection. So let's debug this together. So we'll add our catch, and then we will say, wait, did I reject one of these?
No.
I think you should just log out that error right there.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so we'll do error, console.log this error. Okay, cool. Let's find out, because I'm interested now. Wait, let's make the screen nice and desktop. Cool. What are you complaining about? Iterator is not a function.
Maybe put the promises.
Oh, in an array.
It's an array, yeah.
I was like, what? Is that what you said? Did you say that? I heard somebody say something about an array.
That's what you said.
That was you. I heard it, but I was just like, you know what?
I figured it would put it into an array for you, but
Yeah,
apparently
sure.
it's not.
It's not that helpful.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Yeah,
You didn't have it before. Be grateful. Yeah, that's right. Visual Studio Code. Bye bye. Isn't that surprising how it did that for you? Okay.
It's waiting on our.
Wow, it's taking
Well, why is it taking so long?
Yeah.
P2.
Because we waited for all of them.
Well,
That's
okay,
exactly
okay,
right.
okay. So now do P1, P3, P2.
Doesn't matter.
No, but it is important if you're going to log stuff and you're going to make stuff happen in that order.
Oh, I understand.
Does it come back in the order that you put it in the all?
Okay, let's just make sure that we have them all labeled properly so we'll know which one we're looking at and not have to guess.
Oh.
Because I was definitely guessing. I was just like, what? Yes, it's working. Yes, hey everybody, we did it. All right, let's put this all together.
Turning up the pressure on yourself here.
And it's getting hot up here. Like I'm like losing 3 pounds sweating.
Yeah, I felt bad.
Yeah, seriously. No cardio tonight. All right. See the output?
5 seconds.
Oh yeah, I understand CB. Yes. So the position in the array is which result it is.
Right. So you could, in theory, take action on them in order.
That's right.
Regardless of what order they come
That is
back in,
correct.
you then process the result in order.
That is correct.
That's pretty simple.
That's kind of important.
That is a huge benefit. So let's make sure we're all on the same page with that. So what's happening is this. Oh, it's really hard to see. But this array. Can we turn off? Thank you. This array, the order of the results actually matches the order in which I listed them in this array. So P3, P1, P2. So what's the power of that? Let's say that we sent a bunch of asynchronous calls that come back at different times. but we know the order that we want the data to be in. We know the order we want to respond to that data in. The position in the result will be the order that I listed them in. So that gives you a whole lot of power, but here's the really crazy thing about the promises.all. This is why I use this the most out of all of the things. I hardly ever write my own reject function, my own resolve function. I use promises.all every day because, like I said, with our site, we have a bunch of different data points coming from everywhere. And we got a spinner up, and we can't display impartial data. I mean, we can't display partial data on our site. It just doesn't work that way. We have to fill in drop downs, we got to fill in other things. You just can't do part of it. So I have to wait until all of them come back, and before promises, the only way is if I was keeping track of them individually and had some type of polling mechanism. Now with this, I just say, okay, I want all these things. 1 or 100, it's the same. I can build this array programmatically. That's an even further power of this. I can build that array programmatically. I can optionally add things into this list and then just say all of these things. So even if I don't write all the code myself, I can just say, collect all the promises that apply for this screen. Maybe I get 10, maybe I get 1. Who cares? Promises.all.
All right.
All right, I think that's it. I think it's a good stopping point.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.